Is this true? More and more European households are installing solar panels, and 91% of the imported photovoltaic products are made in China. European warehouses are full of solar modules from China. According to the German PV magazine, the total production of photovoltaic modules in European warehouses is currently about 40 gigawatts, with a total value of approximately 7 billion euros, equivalent to about 57 billion yuan. By the end of this year, as many as 100 gigawatts of solar panels from China may be waiting for delivery in European warehouses. It seems that the EU's de-Chinafication policy has failed. Why is that? Is losing the price war to China just an excuse? Since the beginning of this year, the import volume of photovoltaic products in Europe has remained higher than the same period last year. For example, the import volume in March was 51% higher, while the import level in May was only 6% higher than a year ago. Analysts predict that Europe may import about 120 gigawatts of solar modules this year, and the scale of photovoltaic power generation on the European continent will expand by about 63 gigawatts. Analysis shows that in the past 5 years, European expenditure on photovoltaic imports has nearly doubled. In 2018, it was 5 billion euros, and by 2022, imports had exceeded 20 billion euros. An increasing number of solar panels are being directly shipped from China to Europe. Chinese products account for 91% of the total expenditure on photovoltaic imports, reaching 18.5 billion euros. The photovoltaic products imported from China are mainly sold to several countries, including the Netherlands, Spain, Germany, Poland, France, Greece, Italy, and the United Kingdom. In 2022, the leader in the import volume of Chinese photovoltaic products was the Netherlands, with an import volume close to 45 gigawatts, about 10 times its domestic increment. In the field of photovoltaics, since 2022, the EU has set ambitious photovoltaic targets in the Green Deal Industrial Strategy, REPowerEU, and the Net Zero Industrial Act. These targets include a goal to produce 30 gigawatts across the entire value chain in Europe by 2025, and to produce 40% of the installed solar photovoltaic capacity on the European continent by 2030. This means that the EU must install 100 gigawatts of wind and solar systems per year, equivalent to the daily output of 17 football fields of photovoltaic power and 16 onshore wind turbines and 4 offshore wind turbines. This will trigger an investment boom in the sector and reduce Germany's dependence on energy imports. Just a month ago, a joint venture company in Europe, Holosolis, announced plans to build the largest solar factory in Europe to date. In terms of solar expansion, the EU's dependence on China has surpassed its previous dependence on Russian natural gas. The EU hopes for a revival of the solar panel industry within the EU. Industry insiders have stated that Europe faces almost insurmountable barriers in rebuilding the solar industry, especially in terms of cost and scale advantages, particularly with Chinese manufacturers, which are now so large that the success of the EU's Green Deal depends on political and financial support. The United States is also offering substantial subsidies to attract the remaining European companies across the Atlantic. The total annual production capacity of the photovoltaic industry in Europe currently amounts to 8 gigawatts. The management consulting firm PwC has stated that the production capacity of China's largest manufacturer, JinkoSolar, currently stands at 45 gigawatts. By the end of 2022, the installed capacity had increased significantly to 70 gigawatts, and the growth rate of its production capacity is evidently faster than that of the entire European industry. In terms of the production cost of solar components, China's costs are also significantly lower than those of the EU. According to industry insiders, the estimated cost for the solar industry in China is around 17 to 18 cents per watt, with a target of 15 cents by 2025. An expert stated that based on rough calculations, the cost in Europe is approximately double that of China. Furthermore, Chinese photovoltaic manufacturers have already entered Europe. The world's largest photovoltaic group, LONGi, will build its first European factory in Germany, with a final decision expected within 6 months. The EU's attempt to de-Chinafy is evidently facing a major setback. Is it due to the inability to compete with China in a price war? Is the European photovoltaic industry seeking a way out? On the 11th of last month, a statement from a former head of the European Policy Center sounded the alarm for a crisis in the European industry. If the current situation continues, the once thriving European photovoltaic industry faces an uncertain future and may not be able to continue. The official claimed that 1/3 of the top 15 wind turbine manufacturers in the world were European companies, which had been transitioning well towards new energy sources. However, due to supply chain, inflation issues, and poor sales, especially losing ground in competition with China, the entire industry faces a huge crisis. Whether in terms of price or efficiency, they cannot compare with Chinese products. As a result, there is a call for the European Commission to intervene quickly. The EU's photovoltaic industry is facing a bankruptcy outcome, and this time, they are not only pointing fingers at China but also using a lot of prejudice and accusatory language. The article states that solar panel prices within the industry have been reduced by over 25%, and sales prices cannot even cover costs. Due to the devaluation of a large amount of inventory in the EU and the inability to deliver orders at the original price, the Norwegian company producing silicon ingots for solar panels has already filed for bankruptcy, and several other companies have started to halt production or are facing a crisis of transformation. The European Photovoltaic Industry Association stated that the underlying reason behind this is that China has targeted the European market and seized a share. About 3/4 of the solar products imported by the EU come from China, and breaking away from this dependence has become urgently necessary. The association also wrote to the European Commission, urging action to counterbalance China and take measures to control China's price competition, as a large influx of low-priced Chinese imports has pushed some European manufacturers to the brink of bankruptcy. However, the industry has overlooked a crucial issue. As early as 2012, the EU had conducted an anti-dumping investigation on solar products from China and imposed tariffs, which they voluntarily removed after 6 years. Industry insiders point out that the current crisis in the European photovoltaic industry is largely due to their own failures, not China. One of the factors is that the EU's anti-dumping and taxation policy against China in 2012 created a hotbed for the European photovoltaic industry, but it resulted in the loss of a 6-year global competitive window. Even when the EU lifted the tariff measures in 2018, many European photovoltaic industry players were still using outdated production technologies, with slow technological updates over the years, leaving them lagging behind globally in the materials sector. When their products entered the global market, they were immediately outcompete, leading to a sharp decline in orders. Previously, a German photovoltaic company also recognized the pros and cons, stating that Europe had fallen behind in technological competition over the past few decades, making it unable to compete with top-tier photovoltaic companies in China, the United States, or even India. Many research and development projects and factories required early investment in development and production. Even if Europe wanted to invest now, it would be too late. They could no longer develop top-tier photovoltaic products, and could only watch as other countries dominated the market. Russian scholars have also questioned this, stating, "If it is just Europe's claim that China has the advantage of cheap labor, there are plenty of regions globally with lower labor costs than China. They could easily relocate the photovoltaic industry to Africa and Southeast Asia to surpass China. Europe simply refuses to admit its own failures and backwardness, and attributing the reasons to China's price war seems to make them feel more at ease.